YouTube, what's up? I'm back again, all day, every day, right? Next up, another pop culture review, and this one I'm gonna struggle with because I really don't remember a lot of the details on some of these things. So it could be more of just a generalization kind of thing, but let's get into it. First thing, the 15th book and the last book of the second phase of this series, because they've kind of come in two sections, Skulduggery Pleasant, until the end. This one had a lot going on in it, and so I forget a lot of the details, but basically, as the story starts off, the Faceless Ones have come back and are kind of ruling over the earth, and so everything's really weird, and Valkyrie, Kane, Akka, Stephanie Edgley, is allied with the Faceless Ones, even though she used to rally against them. And Skulduggery knows this, and he doesn't believe she truly feels that way, and he wants to turn her. But for now, he's going along with her tendency to go along with the Faceless Ones, and he's just playing kind of the long game, and eventually he's able to turn her around and get her back on track and be like, no, the Faceless Ones need to go, they're monsters, right? So he gets her back on board, and in the meantime, the Omen, or the Darkly brothers, Omen and oh god, Augur was the chosen one. He's been turned into this obsidian monster sort of thing, so Omen now has to take up the mantle of the chosen one. And near the end of the book, he goes on kind of this time, future time, like kind of a Back to the Future kind of moment where he has to do some time travel and stuff like that. And their last hope for salvaging the world and saving them from the Faceless Ones is to actually recruit an ally that was actually a fearsome enemy many books ago. Well, not many, maybe not. I forget when they got rid of her anyways. But Darkess, Valkyrie's kind of alter ego, evil self, they have to bring her back to try and, as a last ditch effort, to try and destroy the Faceless Ones and get them off of Earth and that sort of thing. So again, this is just a kind of a general summary of what went on, because there's so much other stuff going on, so many characters, so many little subplots and stuff like that, but I just totally forget. Since again, this would have been like months ago. But amazing book. This series is so good. I'm not sure if he's gonna continue to write the books, because like I said, this was the end of the second phase, and it kind of ends like it could be final, but a series like this with so much magic and anything can happen sort of scenarios, I could see it easily being picked back up if he so chooses to do so, right? So I'm not sure if it's going on or not in the future, but I hope so, because these books are amazing. The series is amazing, so funny, so action-packed, so grisly. Give me more. Next up, another book. I'm not a huge Clive Cussler guy, but I do enjoy his books. I've always been a fan of the water and of boats and any type of watercraft. So, and that's primarily what his books are, right? It's adventures on the high seas with various types of boats and whatever. And the first one I read years ago was called Raise the Titanic, and I love the Titanic. That whole story fascinates me. The wreck fascinates me. So that was the first Clive Cussler book I read years and years ago, and I loved it. And so I'll pick up the odd one here and there when the cover kind of strikes my fancy, right? This one was in the bargain bin at Rexall, so I picked it up. It's Marauder. Again, I don't remember a lot of the names of the characters and stuff like that in this book, but basically there's a guy named Juan Cabrillo who leads a team of like very military types with all different capabilities. They all have their different roles, and they work aboard a ship called the Oregon, which is a cutting-edge kind of ship that they're actually in the process of getting kind of retrofitted and upgraded with some stuff. And so they're out giving it a test run with some of the new capabilities. And in the meantime, we see a couple reunite, as I can't remember if it was him or her that got out of jail. But either ways, one of them got out of jail, meets up with the other one, and then they go wherever their home is or whatever, and get this message that they listen to from a deceased or a dying, I can't remember if he's dead or dying. I think is he Chinese? Yeah, some sort of mega corporation owner guy who's wealthy beyond means, but he's dying, and he wants them to enact a plot of revenge for him by dispersing this neurotoxin across the world that will cause all sorts of mayhem. So as Juan Cabrillo and his team have the Oregon out for a test run, they actually run into an oil tanker that's in trouble, and then they stumble upon this whole plot. So it's basically that team kind of trying to play catch up as these two are making this neurotoxin plan kind of unfold step by step, and they're always kind of a step behind. So they're it's a race to save the world from this neurotoxin sort of thing, and they have to pull out all the stops to do so. So really good book, flew by in a hurry. Really enjoyed it, lots of action, and again, I love things on the water. I love boats. Boats are awesome. Next we got The Simpsons, the 15th season. We finished watching this probably a few months ago, and 22 episodes as usual. And this season first aired across the 2003-2004 time frame, and I thought it was a really good collection of episodes. I was really entertained. There's always some that maybe focus on a character that you're not too fond of, or is kind of more boring compared to the Homer episodes and stuff, right? But every season has that, and yeah, overall I thought it was pretty consistent with what everything that had come before it. And there are some highlights. Some of the episodes, Homer becomes the Pie Man, a superhero who throws pies in the face of wrongdoers and brings about some justice across Springfield. They go to London, England, and Homer gets arrested for accosting the Queen. Bart and Lisa somehow become best friends all of a sudden when Milhouse moves out of town. Weird, right? One of my favorite ones was when Bart wanted to enter a, like, the battle bots where the machines beat the shit out of each other sort of thing. It was some sort of tournament, like, along that line. And so Homer tried to build Bart a robot to go in this tournament, but he just didn't have the capabilities. So he built him a robot, but it was actually Homer inside of it doing all the controls, right? So because he didn't want to disappoint Bart, so then they go to this competition, and Homer just keeps getting the shit beaten out of him in these robot battles. And then yeah, a handful of other really good ones, but I just can't remember what they are right now. But yeah, again, consistent Simpsons. You can't go wrong. Again, I've mentioned this before. I've heard that a lot of people stopped watching The Simpsons when it got really musical. Like every episode there was singing and whatever in it. I have not come across that yet. In that season 15 in the bank now, so we're halfway through the run basically of what they're up to now, or almost halfway anyways. And yeah, I haven't run into it yet. They do have the odd episode and stuff like that where there's some song and dance and whatnot, but nothing more than the usual, right? So far so good, because yeah, I'm not like every episode, right? No, the odd one here and there is great, but yeah, that shouldn't be a regular thing, right? Simpsons were good for a reason, and they should keep that consistency. Most things should, right? Next up, this movie. As a kid, I love this movie. I used to watch it all the time, and I don't know how I must have had it taped on like the VHS or something off of cable. But yeah, I used to watch it a ton. It's from 1982. It stars Kenny Rogers, and it's called Six Pack. So Kenny Rogers plays a race car driver named Brewster Baker. and he has kind of fallen off in recent years. He's not kind of at the top of his game anymore, and we see him as he's traveling through Texas, and he stops to fill up. He's driving an RV with a trailer with his stock car in the back, and he's driving through Texas. He stops at a gas station to do something, and he comes back to the RV, and his race car has been stripped to parts. He's like, what the fuck? So he resumes, and then eventually stops at a diner for a bite to eat. As he's sitting there, he notices other cars outside being stripped apart. So then he gets out, he leaves, he chases these crooks down. They're in this kind of van, and eventually catches up with them, and they drive the van into a river by accident. So then Brewster ends up actually having to save the crooks, who happen to be a family of orphans. So all these young kids who are very mechanically inclined are actually working for the corrupt sheriff of the county, in acquiring all these parts and making money off of it, of course. So Brewster ends up kind of, he wants to give the kids to wherever they need to go, but they eventually kind of end up hanging around with him and developing a bit of a relationship, and the fact that they are so mechanically inclined helps him with his car and stuff like that. But he still wants to move on. He still doesn't want to, you know, have to take care of all these kids. So of course there's the moment where he breaks their hearts by giving them away, but then he regrets it afterwards, and, you know, goes back for them, sort of thing. And at the end of the movie, it must have been the sheriff or something like that. Yeah, the sheriff's team end up intercepting Brewster on his way to the Atlanta 500. He's getting a chance to drive in another actual NASCAR race, and get back to the big time, right? So these guys try and get back at him. They beat him up and dump him in the forest, but he comes to in time, finds a way to Atlanta, and gets to the race just in time to enter, and does the race. And at the end, the cops try to come to take the kids away, and he kind of blocks that from happening, and they all end up living happily ever after. So just one of those 80s movies that just, when you watch it so young, like 1982, so I would have been like 6, around there somewhere, you know, as a kid who always loved cars and stuff like that movie left a really big happy memory on my, you know, my brain imprint back then. And I hadn't watched it in years and years, and then it just popped into my head one day, and I'm like, ooh, I gotta show James Six-Pack. So I ordered it, and still as good as ever, right? Last up, The Outer Worlds for PS4. This game is fucking crazy. It's a real story-driven game, and the story behind it is world events from the early 1900s didn't go the way they actually did in real life, and so that has sent history on a different kind of tangent. So this game picks up hundreds of years after you know, our time in the 1900s, and I think it's the year 2355 or something like that. The galaxy is now run by like kind of mega corporations that are only out to line their own pockets. Terraforming planets out in the outer space has become regular, so mankind has spread to the stars, and one of these systems is called the Halcyon system, and your character is actually discovered aboard a derelict ship that some sort of mad scientist discovers, and so he sends you on an errand to one of the planets in the Halcyon system, I believe, and you end up, you're supposed to meet up with somebody, but you end up crushing him with your escape pod or whatever he sends you off in, and so you inherit this guy's ship and all of his belongings, right? So then you just embark on this journey through Halcyon. You start with this one job that this guy Phineas Wells or something like that, this one job that this guy gives you, and then it just unravels from there, and it's just basically you doing job after job after job, earning money, earning weapons, and just upgrading everything. You gain allies along the way that then become part of your crew, and they can leave your crew if you piss them off or do something wrong. So like I said, it's very story driven. So in almost every, no, well, not almost every mission, but in many missions, you have choices to make when you're interacting with some of the characters that might be involved in the job you're currently doing. So that depending on how you react to them, what you say to them, the decisions you make, whether to help them or not, or how you're going to help them, that greatly affects the outcome of the game. And also if your allies, if you pick up allies, if you lose allies, that sort of thing. So it's a really neat game. I imagine a game like that would be hard to create, because you got to make all these storylines, and then you got to make all the different branches. Well, if they say yes, if they say no, if they make this, you know what I mean? So it's just a really big, wide open adventure with a really distinct vibe to it. It's got a really neat feel, kind of old-timey meets space travel, you know. Yeah, I had a lot of fun playing it. It was like Cyberpunk, right? Like near the end, I was just every session, right? Like, oh, I want to play Outer Worlds, right? Until it was done, and then all of a sudden it was done, and I'm like, what am I gonna do now? All right, just if you haven't played this game yet, if you like the more open world kind of choose your own adventure, and not just the straight this is what you do, it's a really good game, and it plays smoothly too. It's just a beautiful masterpiece all around. So I enjoyed it very much. I enjoyed making this video very much, even though it wasn't some of my best work. I'm tired. I forgot a lot of the details on this thing, but I'm old, and my phone was full of storage for about 6 months, so you can't blame me for being a little out of sorts, right? So next time around, I'll make it a little crisper. Toodles.